This is the Catch a Break podcast, the insider's guide to breaking into and navigating the entertainment industry. You can find us at catchabreakpodcast.com and all the social media at catchabreakpod, as well as all the podcast places. I'm Julie Harris Oliver, formerly Julie Harris Walker, and this is part 2 in a series of interviews with the leadership of the Women's Production Society. The WPS is an organization of physical production executives across the industry. It started as a small cocktail party and has since grown to more than 100 members and is a powerful force of change within the industry with the purpose to fulfill their mission statement, to promote the hiring of women in leadership roles in film, television, and new media. In the last episode, I talked with the group's founding members, Dana Belcastro and Debra Bergman. And today I'm talking with Jeanette Volturno, producer and entrepreneur, and Cristen Carr Strubbe, producer turned physical production executive, who are the current leaders of the group. You can hear Jeanette's story on episode 111 of the Other 50% podcast, and Cristen is on episode 15 of that same podcast. Now, if you can't find these episodes on your podcast feed, since I think they only keep the last 100 or so, you can find them on the website, which is theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters. So, in this episode, we talk about where the WPS is now, how they weathered the COVID of it all in the last couple of years, and what the plan is going forward. Here, have a listen. Okay, now we're going to talk to the new leadership in Women's Production Society, Jeanette Volturno.
Hi.
And Cristen Carr Strubbe.
Hello.
So tell us where you are right now.
I am the SVP at Universal Studios for feature film.
And Jeanette?
I'm a co-owner and producer of Catchlight Studios, which is my company with some partners of ours.
And also, I think you started a little piece of software?
And I am a co-founder of Groovy.
And are you working on any particular projects right now?
I am currently producing the 5th season feature film for Project Greenlight for HBO Max, New Line, Miramax, and Catchlight. And hooray!
So fun. Mm-hmm. We're all going to be tuning in. Okay, so now the two of you have taken over the reins of the Women's Production Society. And have you both kind of been there since the beginning?
No, I was not. I was an independent producer, production manager, so I didn't get into the executive world until 2013. And that's when I started to go to some of the meetings with these guys.
I heard a rumor that you were insisted on naming this group.
Oh, I know. That's me. I like to name, categorize, file, archive.
Oh, you producer types.
Yes, I know. Yeah, give it a name, throw it in a file.
Jeanette, how about you? When did you join?
I think I joined probably around 2016, 2017. I was running production at Blumhouse and built and ran that for several years. And it was just a godsend to be able to be included and meet these amazing women and be part of the group. Yeah.
So the two of you took over right before the pandemic started. Can we talk about what you were thinking at the time you took it over and then kind of what happened the next 2 years?
Well, to preface it, so Jeanette and I had met when I first became an executive in 2013, and she was one of the people that I had met, reached out to because I did not know the landscape of that at all. And so she was super generous with her time and information and just, giving me the "it'll all be okay" talk regularly. And we ended up on a FAM tour, a familiarization tour of Russia together. Along with a speaking tour at the same time that was put on by the Film Commissioners Association, International Film Commissioners Association. So we were talking about women in the space. And so we were really touting WPS at that time as members, and that coincided with Debra and Dana saying that they, were looking to hand over the reins. They were both very busy. And Jeanette and I, after our couple of weeks in Russia, said, well, we can do that. I think we can do that.
Yeah, and it was a good balance because it was coming from the indie side and the studio side blended together.
Yeah. It was a good compliment between the two of us because we had different circles we were working within.
So I imagine you had to be agile. Did you have big plans at the end of 2019 and then thought,
we had lots of plans.
Like what?
Well, we had our first meeting as co-leaders at Universal October of 2019. We had just gotten back from Russia. And at that point, it was, we were really looking towards the DEI initiatives. We were headlong into the production supervisors, into the DGA. We were doing a lot of expansion work for the whole industry as a whole, of creating a pool or awareness of a pool of young women getting into the business. And that was really, I think, our core objective, along with getting the website up and running, getting all of those things together and having a little more connectivity to people. So it wasn't these one-off things happening, but where we could have a collection of ideas and thoughts to move forward efficiently.
Yeah, I remember right after that meeting, I went into the IA negotiation for the low budget agreement. And what we were able to take out of that was equaling hair and makeup in same pay, and also being able to pull one person in through the pathway program and getting them into the union. And that was the foundation for the majors to be able to go in and negotiate for that. And so we were able to share those resources and what was it that we could bring to the low budget indie contract that when the major contract came could be helpful, and what we were all leaning in together to be able to do. So that was a great resource to be able to say, okay, how can we work together on both sides and sort of push things forward on that piece. So I think that happened in November of 2019. Mm-hmm. And it was great to be able to, call up the women on the committees and say, like, what are you looking at? What are the important things? So that was probably one of the first things that I got involved in.
Now, did you lean on the group I know there was that whole flurry of COVID's here. What are we going to do? How do we reopen production? Mm-hmm. I remember that, all hands on deck. Did this group really come together around that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was a steering committee that was created. We were very careful about, the politics of what the studios were, allowing people to share, but able to share it in a way that helped other people, whatever we could find and figure out. And, a lot of the women on our group were involved in creating the rules about how to get back to work safely and how to be the first ones out in the field and take care of the crew. And it was pretty inspiring and amazing. There's how many people? Like about 160 people in the group now? Yeah. I mean...
Yeah. There's a good portion, and about 20 of those are post and visual effects. So, about 140 physical production people through streaming, features, television, new media.
So let's talk about, I imagine now there are tiers, because before it was, we're all VPs, who do you know? What's the process now for membership and coming in?
There are no tiers. You're in or you're not. And basically people can go to the website, womensproductionsociety.org, and there's a registration and a membership fee, $25, which basically runs the website. And they apply. That application comes to Jeanette and I if we're aware of them and they're VP or equivalent and above, then they're entered in. If we're not familiar with them, we've gotten some memberships from overseas or from places that we're not familiar with, and then we throw it to the steering committee. We do have a 12-person steering committee that meets prior to each one of our quarterly meetings and helps guide the agenda and help parse out various different tasks and initiatives that we're going to try to make happen.
So what are some of those initiatives now? What are you working on?
Well, there's some that pop up. Like we had the COVID conversations that were happening at the very beginning when we were, working on what are the return to work agreement things. I had to recuse myself out of that group because of being in a studio. We were part of the people that were working with the AMPTP and the different unions to create the return to work agreement. But there was a lot of people that were not beholden to that, studio restraint.
They were allowed to, say these are the suppliers that we're using, and these are the, we were able to share those kind of resources, which was fantastic because, in the beginning, where do you get all the PPE? And then who are the good testing companies? Yeah. How fast can you get it turned around? And all of that stuff.
Right.
I imagine you have to be careful with the antitrust.
Yes.
So how do you kind of keep that front of mind as you're all sharing information and...
Well, and that's why I had to recuse myself from that, just because that was an area where I couldn't really divulge what we were doing. And we were really at the forefront of making these return to work agreement based on my brilliant production manager on Jurassic, who put together that 130-page manifesto that went around town. So it was really mostly based on that came these return to work agreements. But I have to be mindful of Universal and making sure that I'm working within their guidelines. More recently, we had a pop-up talking about when, the crisis in Ukraine, how does that affect us? We had a couple of weekly calls on that and opened up an area for people to comment on that. And then we have a couple of subcommittees. We've got some initiatives where we're trying to add in a bit of good news to the website and to try to support each other and have a little of of that, because I think we all still really need that.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And the salons. We've got salons that are going on.
Those are great.
Oh, talk about that.
So Monica Levinson is running those, and it's a mixer that happens. Right now they're just virtual. We will do them in person soon. Mm-hmm. And people are given a few questions and brought in, and they get to talk on different topics and meet different people, and it's interesting. It's just a bit in our world and a bit out of our world, because it stretches you enough to talk about experiences or things that you've done that overlap with who you are and what made you, this powerful female leader, and what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, Monica devised it as with 6 prompt questions and then breakout rooms. And it's so that we can start to connect a little bit more on a personal level with each other, because that's what was so great about the breakfasts and the dinners and things like that, is that, you really create this tribe of familiarity. And while Zoom and all of that is great, there is nothing like sharing the personal stories that normally only come out around a dinner table. Mm-hmm. So it's creating that opportunity in these salons. And they've been very fun.
Yeah.
Give me one example of a prompt question.
Oh, I think one of them was, the very first was tell us something that nobody in this room knows about you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fun.
And one of the women had been in a fighter plane, right?
Yeah. She was like a fighter pilot.
Fighter pilot. Yeah. It was freaking crazy.
Yeah. She'd been in the Air Force. Yeah. I'm like, well,
none of us knew that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And one of the initiatives that we've been really working on, it's been a little difficult because of COVID, but the idea of having kind of a connectivity to colleges and young women and letting them know who we are, and letting them have a personal glimpse at, a day in the life of Jeanette, and what does that look like? And here's something you can aspire to. And here's all these other women, and kind of to, again, create that familiarity that this is not, fairy dust. It's just hard work and passion.
Mm-hmm. If you can see it, you can be it.
Yeah.
And then, raise questions that, people can talk about for the green side of our industry. So we've done a green presentation recently, where we've taken some people from various studios and people who have done stuff for the PGA website, and, bringing that back up to life, because COVID rocked that whole thing. So, bringing that back up in the conversations, bringing up the DEIA and what are the tools. And, there's a lot of resources that are on our website now, so that things are all in one place, and you don't have to, go scrounging around trying to figure out how can I find such and such a resource or such and such a thing. So, that really streamlined and made our lives easier.
Mm-hmm. And some of the things that we've been trying to consistently add to the quarterly meetings, we attempt to have a quarterly meeting. It used to be in person, now it's Zoom, which in a way makes it a little more accessible for everybody. But we've always tried to add some new person to intro, whether it's women in film or the Green Initiative, or Shelley Strong had this great yoga instructor who came in and gave us breathing exercises. And I honestly was like, really? I don't know. But it was the greatest thing. It was really a wonderful glimpse.
These women generally they take care of other people first.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't take care of themselves first. And so some of the pieces that have been extremely fascinating for me and such a great resource are things like that. Plus, Dana Belcastro brought her investment woman to the site, and I signed up with her, and
I signed up with her.
And it's great because it helps you realize, I have to take, it's that, put the oxygen mask on first before you put the oxygen mask on somebody else. Mm-hmm. So that's part of what this site helps with those kind of resources. Even when we're in the production side of things and we're talking about hey, ladies, do you provide a nanny on set? Or how do you deal with, working women, or what are those challenges and issues? And those are the kind of things that we can talk about. And then everybody just comes to the table with thoughts, ideas, resources. And, that's a brilliant space for us.
Oh, it's great. Debra mentioned that perhaps we'd lost a decade of work over the pandemic. Definitely there's been a backslide. Are you able to quantify that, or really know what that is exactly?
I don't know if I can quantify it. I mean, it's definitely apparent. And the thing that makes kind of no sense is that our resources are so stretched thin right now. There's so much production, and there's not enough people to do it. So you would think, oh, that means you've created this gateway of entrance, but alas, that's not happening. And so that's what I'm trying to grapple with is like, why is, I mean, I think it's what was mentioned earlier is that the backslide goes back to the comfort level of I'm going to hire someone who's exactly like me.
Yeah.
Who looks like, acts like, sounds like, smells like.
Because like there's so much chaos around me. I'm going to control everything I can control.
Yes.
When really there should be no barrier to access right now.
Right.
But it's a weird thing. Like if you look back and you look at, the macro of everything that's going on, there's a flood of everybody just putting their pedal to the metal to get content created and done. But because we all went out the starting gate at the same time and are trying to fill that, and because a lot of the companies now are trying to pull back on their spend, there's well, who can we get to do it for the least amount? Who will take on the most amount? Who will and instead of promoting people up and instead of having those people work on the lower end projects and nurture them and give them the tool set to move forward, it's a pile on to the people that we already know and still keep going back to the same pool, the same well. So that training, that nurturing, that pulling up from the bottom and starting to give pathways to people and support them in that, because the flurry of we just got to get it done and we're shortening the time and you got to do it as fast as you can and you only have this much money. There's a squeeze coming from both sides.
It feels like we've lost the mentorship apprenticeship piece of production, but no one feels like they have the time to do it.
Well, I think it's two-sided as well, because obviously it takes more effort from a management standpoint to foster somebody up. So you have to have that. That's just more work, but you need to be able to do that. Conversely, people are elevating so much on the freelance side. They have to be willing to embrace new things and realize that they don't know everything, or that they, because they've made 2 movies, they are not of a certain level.
So moving up too quickly.
And, having a bit of the emperor's new clothes, not understanding that there's a world of stuff for you to learn, and I'm here to teach it to you should you want to. But I have 50% reaction to that. Some people are just like, no, I know what I'm doing. And that's unpleasant.
I've also seen, which I'm curious, your perspective on a real generational gap right now. Gen Z is coming in up from a place of, I know you want to hear my voice. I know you want me to bring my whole self and be involved. And if you don't take everything I say as a decision, then you're discriminating against me. So I think there's a communication disconnect there. I'm wondering if you're seeing that and how you're dealing with that. Might be completely off topic.
I think it actually dovetails completely to what I was just saying. I think I wouldn't be wrong to say that most all of us in the steering committee and at the spearhead of WPS are women that slogged through the mud for decades with our own shovel that we built out of our, own metal that we forged.
Worked so hard.
Yeah. And we're trying to embrace and build up people getting into the business who think that is really an inefficient, stupid way to go, and they should just, come in at the top, and we'll figure it out as we go, kind of thing. And that's very disconcerting.
And what I try to do in that is try to protect them. Like, hey, watch and learn from other people. Be in the field and see it. And then you're not the one with the flak jacket on taking all the bullets. You're learning from that experience, right? But that's why that supervisor DGA path has been such a big piece for us, because a lot of those people that are in that position can't move up into the DGA world very easily. And thankfully on the independent side, we're able to get people in, but it's a hard route. And some people don't want to go that way. The rules around it are, well, I'd rather stay knowing that I can get this amount and work on these projects. And do I have enough time to actually transition? Will it make sense for me to spend another 10 years going down this path of DGA? And do I have to take all these jobs out of the state because I'm trying to support my family? And then when you're looking at it with a single mother or, somebody who needs to be the breadwinner of the family, it becomes a very challenging piece to it. And I think it all blends together of, that coming up into the system.
But I have to imagine that having a whole group being able to have these conversations and share resources got to help.
Oh, yeah. It's invaluable.
Yeah. Jeanette and I were speaking the other day and saying I couldn't imagine getting through the pandemic in the film world and on a personal level without having the sisterhood of WPS, where you could just look somebody in the eye and go, I'm going nuts right now. So you need to talk me off a ledge here for a second. And so we've all been able to have each other's backs. And these are friendships that were developed for me within WPS and are integral to my everyday, both work and personal life.
It made it a lot easier for me to leave the job that I had in the corporate side of things and venture out on my own, knowing that these women and these relationships that I had cultivated over the years that I'd been in the WPS had my back.
And we've all transitioned jobs within it. And I think going back to one of the things we were talking about, one of the early meetings that we had was with Sherry Lansing coming into WPS. We had gone to a book signing of hers and we're, when she was signing the book, explaining what WPS was. It was kind of early days. And she was like very floored and excited by it and couldn't believe that there were a number of women, one in physical production, and two, that they were completely supporting each other and not doing a King of the Hill act. So she came and spoke, and you were there, and it was really inspiring to see someone of that level be so inspired by us and what we were doing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your plans going forward?
I think we're going to continue to work on communication. The website's been really helpful. It needs some love and care. It's been the dusty slippers in the closet for a little bit. So I need to step that up and get, and hopefully it will be more engaging. My hope for it is that it will be the thing that'll help engage more people to be proactive, because like anything, it's the same 15 people, 20 people that are doing something. And we have 140 plus people now. So we're hoping to get them in and get their ideas and what is it that interests you and how do you want to use this incredible wealth of knowledge and support to move that agenda forward? So I think to me, it's about that expansion of bringing other people in to lead ideas that we're not even thinking of.
I mean, for me, I always say on the DEI side, invite one new person into your group, right? And then your cocktail party will be more fun because you're meeting someone new. And the same thing on the WPS side is, join one new committee and bring something to it, because your energy, your experience, your participation uplifts the entire team. So I think that's the message to get out to the women in the WPS so that we can help bring up a new generation of people into this and give them those lessons that we've had along the way and that inspiration and that insight and the tools to be able to, again, pay it forward to the next group that are coming in.
I'm curious if the issues, I imagine they have evolved. Because Dana and Debra were saying at the beginning it was, I'm the only one in the room. I'm the only one in this whole organization. I'm battling this sexism and misogyny just in my day-to-day job. Is that still top of mind for people, or have we moved past that at all? Are we on to other things, or does that still remain and we move forward?
It's still there. Mm-hmm. It's still there, and the DEIA is still there. It's a huge piece of what we all balance with our crews and our training and our inner teams and the projects that we're working on. There's more permission to be able to speak about it. There's more permission to be able to call it out. Mm-hmm. And
we can name it now.
You can name it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when, one of the things that I've consistently done is when I'm starting a project and I'm looking for line producers, I always make my gender producer list even if that means it has to only be 4 people. I would always have a 50-50%. And I don't think anyone else had done that at the studio. And so it was kind of a new thing, like, oh, this is weird. Why is this? And so and I think little things like that, I think are ways to move forward and continue to bring that top of mind. But it does get questioned. All of a sudden that's unusual to see, whether the response is, oh, do they want a female producer? It's like, well, no, they didn't mention female or male. These are just...
They want a producer.
Yeah. So I think that dialogue still does slip into the conversation occasionally. But I think we're in a good place that our WPS has expanded exponentially in the last 4 years. And I think also over COVID, there's so many females specifically that have gone into the executive roles, and because there's so much more content and they're more willing to take the financial role back for the security of themselves and their family. So I'm very hopeful that what that will end up showing in a couple of years is, with more women in places of leadership, that changes, the landscape.
It's funny that you say you make your list 50-50 and that gets questioned when there's so much talk about, do we do the Rooney Rule, which the NFL has proven does not work. And it's funny, just even that still gets questioned.
Yeah, and it's it's unconscious bias. It's not meant.
I don't think it's unconscious anymore.
Well, yeah, that's now.
I think that's generous.
Yeah. Like Jeanette said, now we can say, "Oh, hey, wait, what is that? That's not okay. This is, why do you say that? Why do you ask that?" And where, 5 years ago, I don't think I would have had the strength of courage to do that, to question it.
And I would say this group actually gives me okay, you're not crazy. You have permission to speak up and do that. And here's some of the languaging and the tools, and I'll even role play with you. Like, that is a huge piece, because before I was in my own little world, in my own little thing, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to put a word to this, or I don't know how to ask for this, or I don't know.
How do I see it?
And is anyone else going through this? And yeah, they are. And yeah, here's some tools. And yeah, it's okay. And yes, you should speak up. And here's how to do it,
Yeah. It's something about owning your power in the situation to be able to speak
100%.
to it and not be afraid. Because really, what's going to happen to you? Someone's going to argue the side of, no, we'd like to continue to be racist and sexist. Thank you.
And it's okay to get it wrong and apologize and correct yourself and learn 100%. From that and move forward.
How else are we going to get there?
Right.
No one comes out of the gate knowing how to talk about it. In fact, there's so many phrases in our just in our lexicon, phrases we grew up with that just come out of our mouth. It happens to me every day. I say some phrase I grew up with, and then I say, oh, that's super racist. Like, the origin of that. Let me never say that again. Yeah. It's a big evolution we're in the middle of.
My kids are very good about pointing that out to me very quickly.
We have the woke police in our house. Yes. It's very helpful.
Yeah. It is, though. It does open up a dialogue for me and with them, and I'm proud of them for being able to question anything that comes out of any place of authority, which is not necessarily where I was coming from, coming up in the business.
Not necessarily. at all, any of us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm grateful to Dana and Debra and the women that
here
paved the path forward, and am so inspired to be able to hand whatever I can, whatever tool set, whatever, ability that I can to the next generation, and show them that there is a different way, that there is a better way, that there is a more loving way of participating, creating, producing, and supporting in our industry.
I mean, that is it. And I think it's so... seeing this group is so inspiring and so thrilling, and think, oh God, we may get there someday. Because I think we can all envision what that world would look like. I'm curious, on the really bad days, how do you keep going? When there's a day where you're like, really, are we ever going to make any progress? Like, are people really going to change their minds? Like, how do you go another day?
It's like that, the 50-50 call where you get to call somebody, you call one of your friends in the WPS and you just vent and they hear you and then they reflect back to you like, it's okay. I've been there. Take a moment, take care of yourself, come back to center, focus on what you need to do, and what do you need from me? How can I help? And that's invaluable because just somebody hearing you and you being able to speak that out loud without a judgment, without anything else, to just really be with you and hear you and then say, I've been there before, or have you tried this, or call this person, or there's a resource, it's amazing.
I think what that brings to mind is, for me, is that most all of our careers, we have not been able to show vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because we've had to be tough as nails and twice as good as the man in the room. And now we have a group that we can be vulnerable with. I can call up any number of people. I can call Jeanette, Dana, Debra, and we can say, oh my gosh, I'm falling off the cliff here. I don't think I've got this. And what would you do? And that is invaluable because I know that I never had that resource before.
Yeah.
Other than very close friends who was never in the same situation. We're all dealing with that same universe. So.
What's crazy about our jobs, there's no manual for what it is that we do.
Right.
You're supposed to promote up and come into this with a whole bunch of skill sets, not only on just the physical production side of things, but also on an emotional side of things, on a leadership side of things, on a financial side of things. And you have to just figure it out. So having people that you can lean into that may have had some more training on like an accounting side of thing, or may have had some more training on a public speaking side of thing, or a leadership side of thing, or a emotional side of thing, like that's invaluable because again, where are you going to learn this? How are you going to do this? And you're never going to come in as a whole rounded person 100% in all of those areas.
How could you possibly?
Right.
And there's a new crisis every day you have to
That's
figure
right.
out. I remember one time when Dana Belcastro said to me, if there's something that somebody's saying to you that doesn't make any sense, it's like, no, then you need to say it a different way because I'm a smart person and that is making no sense and we're going to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What would Dana do?
So what are you looking forward to in this next year with the Women's Production Society?
Getting back together.
Yeah, in person. Yeah, I think that
Finally.
I think that is one of the single focuses we have is we've been trying, we've had steering committee meetings in person sort of, where we're getting that. We really, really want to have an in-person quarterly meeting with a ton of folk and just celebrate the fact that we have come through a really difficult time for our industry, for us personally, for the world in general, and just celebrate it.
And
Amen.
get on with it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Godspeed, ladies. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Catch a Break podcast. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. Thank you to Jeanette Volturno and Cristen Carr Strubbe for sharing the story of the WPS. And thanks to all four of you, Dana, Debra, Jeanette, and Cristen, for inviting me to do this. It was the most fun. If you want to learn more, you can visit their website at www.womensproductionsociety.org. Please check out our website at catchabreakpodcast.com and follow us on all the social media. Catch a Break is produced in partnership with Catchlight Films and the Other 50% and is sponsored by Cruvy, reinventing the playing field in entertainment worldwide. Find them at cruvy.com. That's CREWVIE. Our theme music, Mantra for a Struggling Artist, was composed by Andrew Jocelyn. You can also hear these episodes on the WPS website as well as on the Other 50% podcast feed, which you should also be listening to for more interviews from interesting people working in this business. Thanks for listening. See you next time.